Our next little subtopic here is branding. Branding's a big one. I mean, I think that definitely kind of falls into the realm of digital marketing. If your brand only really exists in the digital environment, I mean, it sure as heck does. And how many businesses these days are completely digital businesses? Certainly a lot more this year than I think there were before last year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, branding is a concept that it does and should evolve as your company grows. And one way that can happen, one way that you find out what your customers like or what your audience likes, is by putting stuff out there and seeing what people respond to. And a great example of this is back when I was working in the natural foods industry. We had an online contest that did very, very well. And while this contest already focused on a pretty central part of the business, it did so in more of a shareable, collaborative way. And through the power of social media, we discovered not only a new angle on how we could promote the product, but a way to get our customers to feel special and to get involved, which ended up becoming a big part of the brand and a big part of the overall website design. And so one thing that shows, and it was kind of a mouthful, but one thing that shows is if your customers and your users are responding to something that they like, making that a part of your brand is very important. And that's just an overall part of digital marketing. So
I think
Seems like a
something,
no-brainer.
sorry,
yeah.
David. Something as well that is difficult, especially for newer companies. I think it's probably one of the harder things to do when you're new in business, is ensuring that your brand message and kind of knowing what it is that you do and where your niche is really easy to distinguish for the person looking at that thing. I heard a quote a while ago that was like, when you try to appeal to everyone, you wind up appealing to no one. And so I think knowing before you do your branding what your target audience is, what your message is, what it is you do, exactly what problem you solve, and making sure that the idea fairy isn't coming too much into play and saying, well, we could solve everybody's problem in the world. You can maybe do that later, but initially it's really important to just hone that in.
That's a really good point, Raya.
It's key to have a brand, a brand that is tightly aligned with who you are. That at a glance, even if someone's unfamiliar, it conveys that same image.
I think we've learned this over the last couple of years, that having to, outputting the correct branding and the correct voice gets you the right customers too, the people who you want to work with, the people that aren't as painful to work with or who you enjoy working with. So
the people that value you the most.
Exactly.
Yeah. And visuals are a big part of bringing in that target market. So especially with like our e-commerce examples, different ways to display just what you're selling or anything like that will bring in different types of people.
Well, different types of buyers are looking for different things, looking for a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
A brand is another one of those components that, if it's done right, it really helps the job of not only distinguishing you from your customers, but also communicating visually in an instant what it is you do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think something that becomes really easy, especially when you're first developing your brand, is to say, okay, who is my target audience? And to kind of identify who that is. But then you see so much potential in your product or service that you say, but I could also serve this audience. And I think that's where people get into some trouble, because that secondary audience will probably come with time. But initially, you want to make sure that you can kind of break through that wall of people knowing who you are and what you do and who you do it for in a clear way. Otherwise, people are probably just going to say, well, I don't really understand this.
And doing that, Mariah, is also a really, I'll say this tongue in cheek, a really good way to overspend on your PPC.
Well, wait. Google's listening. Don't say things like that. You need to totally automate your pay-per-click program so your budget is really high, guys.
So that you appeal to everyone.
Yes. More ads, please. I'm not cynical about Google, am I? No. No, that's good stuff. And Kim had a really great comment here. Yeah, definitely not please everyone. Being authentic will draw the right audience and buyers. Authenticity. I mean, I feel like over the last few years, there's been so much talk about that, and I think you couldn't talk about it enough. They're bombarded with so much content and information these days. Everybody's saying, "Hey, we're the experts. We know what we're doing." You know, could be, but authenticity, it's so desired. I feel like people are just begging for it. Like, are you real? You're saying a lot of good things, but it's I don't want to get into this and feel like, oh wow, they're not legit after all, right? And that's where it's kind of nice to have, from the account standpoint, where you're working with projects, clients, and things, getting a face-to-face time, even if it's just virtual. Just really talking to them, like, look, we are who we say we are. It's not easy sometimes when you're completely digital and disconnected, just going through that process, and sometimes using some of those software as a service things out there. That's how it is. You don't interact with actual people. I think that's a nice thing about the consulting side of this kind of work, is actually interacting with people. You get to demonstrate that authenticity in a real way. But if you can be authentic and just content in your brand, you really got something there.
No, and being authentic is much easier than being fake. But I think people are it's just such a consistent theme in business historically that people are having a hard time breaking free. But yeah, it's refreshing not to have to live that way. And it comes out, customers recognize it.
Hi, this is Sarah from Denver Data Web. Thanks for watching. Please like our video and subscribe for future digital strategy chats. You can also visit our website at denverdata.com or find us on social media at Denver Data Web.